per unit. And whereas the sewer system servicing Sportsman's Harbor development was designed and installed in 2002 to provide service to a determined number of residents, and the system provides little or no provisions to accommodate additional sewage load that would be generated by an increased number of individuals. Kind of give you some background, Sportsman's Harbor has a vacuum system, sewer system. Out here, most of you are exposed to a gravity flow system. You go in, use the washing machine, flush the commode, goes on a gravity flow out to a pipe that takes it up to a lift station, pumps it up to the treatment center. Well, this is not true in Sportsman's Harbor. They have a vacuum system there that has a vacuum on the line that runs through the different streets there. And at a point in time when you fill up, and let's go to the next one there, before we go into the drawing that was there. I had asked, no, that's not it. Here's a drawing there. Okay.
Did you email it to me?
I don't know, Evan, where's the drawing at? I had asked Evan to draw me up a simplified version that I could explain to you. And he said he wasn't sure he could get that simple, so. This is it, this is a simplified version. This is the vacuum station that you see down there between Scott and Hampton Street. There you go. And it has a vacuum line that runs through the street and out to the treatment tank. This is the individual's holding tank that normally services 2 residential units. So there's normally 2 homes hooked to this 350, 60 gallon tank. Next to it, you have a observation tank that you can physically take a plug out of and look down in to see what the level of sewage is in this tank. Of course, it goes there. This over here is a pod that contains a controller and a valve. The system runs, the fluid runs through here and out to here and up this small tube here to where there is a tube that runs up to the top of the controller. Now as the pressure of the liquid rises in this tank, it rises in this tank and in this tube here. There is a column of air sitting on top of the water, or the sewage, and as that level of fluid comes up, it compresses the air that's there. This controller sitting on top of this is sensitive to that. And at a point, somewhere between 13, 15 gallons, inches of fluid in this tank, it activates that control. At that time, it opens the valve, emptying the tank, and it goes through. So, whereas you've got a whole system involved in most of the sewage system, you got an individual system with every other house. So you've got all these individual systems. We got like 115 of these tanks and systems down there in the harbor. Now the weakness here is you increase the frequency that you fill this tank, then you have a problem here with this draining out completely and the level of fluid getting out of there so that the other doesn't add to it. And after a period of time, it has a tendency to want to flood this controller with fluid. When it does, it fouls out that controller. When it does that, it won't open the valve. And then, that's why you have a 360 gallon tank. If we don't get to it in time, it means that it overflows out on the street. Now, the problem that we got here is that as we begin to be exposed to vacation rentals, and we're just starting to see this is a future thing, you're gonna find that the people who own property down here, who are gone 6, 8, 10 months out of the year, realize that they can go to Airbnb or wherever and rent their place to however many people want to come in there. And most of these people are absentee owners to start with. Then you're gonna have, and suppose you had 2 homes that was rented hooked to one of these tanks, and that you were asking this system to take care of it. So that's our concern is, somewhere along the line, Mr. Scott's got to draft an ordinance to deal with this. There's a lot of towns in the state of Florida having a problem. This was enacted back in 2011 when nobody had this problem. And the short-term rental people was bright enough to put it up front in the legislature and get it passed when there was no opposition to it, because nobody had ever seen it. Now, the Florida League of Cities is beginning to get a lot of complaints around the thing. As of right now, we don't know of anybody that's been successful in stopping. There are people out here, towns that have drawn up ordinances that dealt with a lot of things that had to be done. Now, naturally, as usual, when the legislature decided to enact this, they didn't fund anybody to check to see that, the people was observing the things. They didn't have 40 people in the unit or what have you. They got it out here in the hotel industry and stuff. They don't have it here. Now, what happens down in the harbor is particularly, the price level of buying units in the harbor to rent to where you got access to water and stuff is a good price line to rent out as this. And I would expect that as we go along and people realize that these things are available to them, that you're gonna face more and more of this. Now, the rest of the town basically has a gravity-fed sewer system, and we're probably not gonna run into that. So, we may be more successful instead of trying to stop this, is to try to limit the number of people that you can put in these units. And so this is something that's coming up to the council, and I just wanted to let the people in the town and the council realize the challenge that was coming down. It's gonna get here. And now is the time we need to try to draft something to deal with it. So if anybody got any questions, Randy will answer them.
I have a question. I'm Kay Ackland, I live on Moonlight Drive. Okay, so you're talking about us having, or just the community having increased population in this. What would be the difference? I have a 3-bedroom home, and the lot next to me is empty, well, actually on both lots. So I don't share mine with anybody. Mine overflows.
Yeah,
So why would it be overflowing? And the people over here are part-timers, there's nobody over there, nobody's over here. So it seems like we have an issue with it, without the impact of renters being in there.
Is there a big problem of renters coming down there? I mean,
Not as of
I
yet.
don't see it at all.
I don't know exactly how many short-term rentals are there. We don't have a lot of them yet, but that's not the point. The point is, you need to do this up front. And to answer your question, we're having problems with the controllers that are in here. They're in a pod in the ground. And rain, what have you, gets water in it, this pod fills up. When it does, it fouls out this controller. Now, that's totally different than I'm talking about here with overwhelming the system. However, we, gentlemen back here, are at this time installing towers out there as they can. We fund them and they got to put them in, and so as they can get, the money to buy them and put them in themselves to save the money. You will see more and more of these towers going in to where they have taken this controller out of the pod, which is in the ground, and elevated it. They've had a lot of luck with this.
And our guys do a wonderful job, they do a great job
and,
in the program, so.
Well, Randy's tired of me asking him questions, but I've been asking him for 10 years, why don't it work?
Let's address your problem a little further, so we get clear. You, in an ideal situation, in most vacuum systems, they are in a locality where the occupancy is basically a full-time occupancy. You're a prime example that you're there all the time. Each side of you, I know your situation you have. Ideally, each of those houses has a controller that works in line. But if somebody isn't there for 6 months, or if you have a vacancy, what happens is that instead of getting triggered, you trigger yours heavily, but there's nothing next door to you, closer to the station that is pulling it. That is one of the major problems that we brought to the engineers. We're pretty unique. We've got people that don't come down ever. We have people that are down there maybe twice a year. And then we have people that live there fully. We have some families that have higher usage. So this is one of the things I'll address when Sam gets through, because we have had several meetings with engineers, with airbags, trying to resolve this situation, especially made even worse a year and a half ago with the hurricane. But that is part of the problem that we have. And we also have several examples of what Sam's talking about. And you will notice most people survive with about 3,000 gallons a month. When you start getting 18,000 gallons in a house, Sam's looking forward at this. Let's say you get a third of the residences that do go short-term rental. The volume is only so great that system was designed to remove. So you're changing the initial engineering to something entirely different. But yours is an example. Many of our problems are the fact that there is constant living up and down the street. I hope I explained this somewhat.
Yeah.
That it takes it's a system where everything works to bring it to the destination. So that's one of the problems that we have.
Well, unfortunately, the people who wrote it here is a German firm, and when we had contracted with this to be put in 2002, the company that was ramrodding it in the United States went out of business. So we didn't have anybody, much to guide us and let us know what was happening. And unfortunately, the company that installed all this stuff wasn't as informed as they should be. So we've had some struggles trying to get up to speed, but I think that, they put some of those tanks in the ditch. You see them around here, so when it rains, it's gonna be underwater. Some of them are in driveways that are all sloped to the tank. So you get a quarter inch of rain and everything's underwater. So there's a lot of challenges to it. So that's one of the reasons that they're finding that elevating this helps in a lot of cases and stuff. So it will take some time before everybody down there gets a tower. And I don't know that everybody needs a tower, because not every, some of those are pretty high and dry. So, yes, sir.
So thanks for going through all that. There's a lot of information went back and forth. Just wanted to clear up some things. At this point in time, it's not the number of residents in the harbor that's causing problems with the system, it's the system itself. This
Yeah.
whole ordinance that you're proposing is for anticipating a future influx in the harbor of many people.
That is true.
So this is a future problem.
Yeah.
Now, is that exactly our system? Aren't our controllers actually in the holding tank? Isn't our holding tank a split system?
No, the system, there's actually 3 tanks out there, if you look.
Right,
on the
and all
top,
3 are being
yeah,
used?
There's 3. There is the holding tank,
Right.
which, it comes from the house into there.
Mhm.
Then you have a small one,
Yes.
it's an inspection tank.
Mhm.
Then you have another one that is actually a shallow tank that contains the 2 of these, and here they are up here. This is the valve, and on this side is the controller.
And is there some sewage in that tank?
No, there's
That
no
tank's
sewage.
got
in
no
the
sewage
tank.
whatsoever.
There's no sewage, that's all right.
Okay.
There's water, if anything, but the sewage, pardon me, thank you. The sewage doesn't enter into that tank.
Okay.
Unless there's a real problem.
And then, so you also mentioned that, you talked about when it rains, because the system's low. So that's because the tanks should be watertight, is that correct?
Well, actually, we have lids that go on top of those, you see them, the manhole cover.
Right.
Under that, we have another lid.
Right.
But if it's sitting here 24 hours a day with water on the top of it, it's gonna find a way in there. Now, the lid helps a lot. We've even got bowls that we put in, these to cut down
Yeah.
on the, when you had things that was underwater for 6 weeks down there. And so it just overwhelmed the treatment plant. But we have put bowls in those that really help.
But the claimed benefits of a vacuum system is that it can be used in, water management areas, high water table areas.
If you
It
could
can actually
see-
be used in a marina,
Yeah.
because this should be no infiltration and no exfiltration. Water
Well,
should
now
get
they got a
in,
new
sewer should
system.
get out.
Airvac has a new system.
Right,
Doesn't have this tank at all.
okay,
This has 1 tank. It's a very small tank, 8, 10 gallons, something like that. And every time you flush it, evacuates the thing, and it's sealed to where you can't get nothing in it.
okay.
So that would, work probably in
Especially when it floods and it rains.
yeah.
So, and the last thing that was mentioned by Mayor Hines is that those controllers, they're dependent on the one ahead of it, the one down the line? If the
But
one
not
down-
necessarily.
Okay, they should be independent, right?
Yeah, to a degree, yes.
Okay,
And so, but now we got 2 different kinds of those. We
right.
got some that's been out there since 2002,
Mhm.
and they've been overhauled, and, we're probably the only people I know that overhaul these things. They've been overhauled dozens of times, and by now the orifices and the seats and stuff are beginning to get a little play in them, so they may last a day,
Mhm.
they may, last 2 hours. You just don't know when you go through, you put valves and stuff in them, springs and things, and you check them on the bench and they check out.
Okay,
So now they've got newer ones on the market that we're buying as we can, but they're like $300 something. The old ones was $1,100.
Mhm.
So that gets your attention, you start trying to buy a few of those.
Okay, so that explains a lot. So the future, a future's not a solution, but a action is to, try to have a limit on the number of residents using the system. What about this short term? What about right now with I know you're doing as much work as you can, but, and also, when there is high water or when there's a flood, we basically have sewage running in the streets, and that really shouldn't have to live like that. So what
I
about the short
understand
term?
that, but I don't know any way of controlling the river.
Well,
And,
I
you know,
understand.
as long as
but the river
this
shouldn't be
system
a
is
problem
underwater, we have to shut it off.
because of the infiltration.
Because of the infiltration.
Which isn't
of the
supposed to
water.
happen.
And it's gonna foul out every one of those out there.
Mhm.
It's underwater. Sooner or later, it may last a week, but it will go. And so we have no option. You know, are we gonna be pumping sewer everywhere out there?
But we can't pump the river back
You
into
know, you
itself.
shouldn't be swimming to your house and using the bathroom. There ought to be a point in time when you realize that, hey, this is my community and I live here and I need to,
Right,
you know, observe some type of stuff, so.
okay, all right,
But,
all right, thank you.
all right,
Sam,
question?
I have a question.
Okay.
My name is Patty Carlson. My mother and father-in-law were the second people to build a house in Morocco, in
So
the
what's
harbor.
your-
And we're not staying here anymore, but what are you saying they need to do? How many people should be in a house? How many months out of the year if they're not here all the time? How are you gonna control that? Is that what you're talking about doing more so
Well,
than
now
changing?
that's my suggestion. That's a question the board is gonna have to decide with the input from their utility division and stuff. And I'm just saying to you, my, you know, recommendation is to limit to 4 or 6 people per unit, so that when you run into situations where there's one hooked to both homes are hooked to the same unit, then you got some chance of this system continuing to work. Now, if you're gonna put 12 people in each one of them, you know, it was designed thinking 2 to 3 people per unit because of retirement homes. And if you put 12 people in there, you know, you're looking at 8 times the load that you would normally have. And it's probably not gonna work for an extended period of time.
That's what you're aiming at?
Now, the other thing is to say, well, we're not gonna let anybody. Well, I don't know what they're gonna decide, okay?
Okay.
And
Okay.
I'm letting you know that this is a problem that, you know, we're gonna face down the line.
We have,
And it's different when it's a safety hazard, you know, when you're out here looking at health. And,
well, I just wanted to understand exactly what you were coming
okay,
to. And I know, we've been here a long time.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
well, I've been here too long.
hey, Sam.
Yes. Who, somebody have a question?
Me, Larry Peter,
Okay.
from the harbor. Anyway, my question would be this. Can you not tell by the amount of water that particular unit is using? I mean, there's a meter out there. When you read the meter and the meter says 2,000 gallons or 3,000, whatever, that would indicate how much water they're using. And we never exceed the amount of water that's, whatever, for 50 bucks.
That's not the problem, Larry, we can monitor it, okay?
Yeah.
That's not the problem. The problem is, I don't think we really have a terrific problem yet. But when all the people in that harbor realize that they can go out and rent this thing the whole time they're gone, and there's no control over the numbers of people going there, the legislature didn't fund any police to go out here and enforce these things. So it's gonna be incumbent upon this town, if we're to protect you, to come up with some ordinance that regulates that. And that's what we're trying to do.
I understand what you're
But
saying.
individual homes, there's not a problem. You know, we don't have a problem with, every now and then we have somebody with high usage because something broke or something, and Some people use more water than others, and they always are going to. Others use $1,500 a month. And, you know, those are not a problem. Now, when you start exposing this to a continuous overuse, that's where you get into trouble with it. It's not a one-time thing. In fact, I have family reunions every year. There's 40 people come to that family reunion down there in Harvard. They're there for 3 hours and they're gone. And I've never had a problem with my system because it's not a continual load of.
I understand what you're saying, Tony.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Mahaffey, and I live down in Harbor.
Okay.
And, my question is this, it sounds like what you're proposing for the short-term rentals is a good short-term solution, right? It's a short-term solution, and it sounds to me like what you're describing, there is some wear and tear on it, there's some disintegration on it. What about the long-term picture?
Well, the long-term picture, and again, maybe I've done this wrong. Because I gave you my recommendation, and I'm not gonna be the one making this decision. And, so, you know, this is my last day or so on the council as soon as the election gets over with, so. These people are gonna have to make that decision. But yes, there is wear and tear on it. It's something that, you know, this community is gonna have to come to grips with, is that my solution for it would have been probably not, you know, doing away with it altogether and forbidding that you rent your place. I think you should be able to do that. The problem is that, you know, if you're gonna rent to 12, 15 people out there, then, you know, not only that, but your neighbors, these people are on vacation. You know, it's not a quiet spot at that time. And so, you know, but that's not the problem that's gonna get us in real trouble. Trouble is if you're gonna overload this system here, because every 2 houses has a tank between them. And that's basically the weak point in trying to put a lot of people in here.
Well, it's every 2 lots, so it's every 2 lots have. a
Yes,
tank.
there's places
So
out there
it's
got
not-
1 unit because you
Right.
own 2 lots and stuff.
Right, right.
And, you know, so, but the problem there, and I'll give that some thought, the problem there is I come along and say, okay, you can rent your place, but Joe over here, he can't, because it's too big to hook to his tank. Now, we don't wind up in court then. So, I mean, you know, that's just the way it is. Yes, ma'am.
I live on Moonlight also in the harbor, and I guess I share with somebody, cause
Yeah.
every day my tank is being fixed.
Yeah.
They work on it every day. And it's like, how much does that tank hold if
About
both,
350
I have a neighbor that
gallons.
lives there all the time too.
Yeah, about 350 gallons.
So then if we're both using it at the same time, that's why it's.
It won't get to 350 gallons if
Oh,
it's
it won't?
operating correctly.
Oh, okay.
What it will do is when this tank fills up to about 13 to 15 inches, that will energize this here and it'll open and pump it. It only stays open 6-7 seconds. That's how quick it is. But if this tank is full, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's why you see the men coming by, beating those tanks, looking at the place, because they're trying to determine, you know, the level that's in here and if this thing is working. Now, in some places, they have taken the controllers out because they can't keep them working. And they go in every other day and pump it, or every day, whatever. They know the harbor. They're there every day,
I
and
know
so.
We know them.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
and so, you know, they set up a schedule to try to keep you working in spite of the fact that, not able to keep the control working.
And I also wanna say that they do a terrific job.
Well, thank you, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, they've come out with some new controllers and everything like that the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I've talked to people that, does this, and they spend a lot of money
Yeah.
Valves right there are about $1,200.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the people that I know, they buy 40 of them valves every year.
yeah,
Because they have to be rebuilt, the seals and everything like that's gotta be done. I just wondering why they took out the old system and put this system in.
I can answer that one second.
Yeah.
In 2000, the old system was as much as 15 feet deep, thanks to the original developer. In 2000, the DEP told us they were gonna have to do something, and we will not license another gravity system. It took us a year to get to the point that we had both Airvac and Rodiger bid the contract for the vacuum system. That is what the state DEP approved. Unbeknownst to anybody, that the distributor in Pittsburgh for Rodiger was in a court battle. Not only the ownership was caught in the RICO Act, so they were criminally involved as well as mechanically involved with their business. The system that was put in was designed to fit, but then we found this situation. We had a parts problem. Airvac graciously to us allowed us a lot of help. That is a competitor of Rodinger. Even yet this week, we had Airvac in there for 2 days. And just to bring you up to date a little further, I hope some of you have seen the new tower type that we're using. We have 5 of them in the harbor now. Those have, tell me if I'm wrong, Randy, I think we've got 7 months on some of those that haven't been touched.
that's right.
One of the situations is when you have a problem, you have to search for that air leak, for that vacuum leak. That's why you see them creeping around the harbor in golf cart, listen to that. If you go look at the oldest new tower, you will see on it, there's a light. When you have a situation on these new towers, this interior situation, the light comes on so that only, and you know you have a leak somewhere on account of its tunneling, so at the station, all you have to do is see that light. Even you, the owner or the user, can advise us if we go to this system, but we're talking $1,500 at minimum just for the parts. And that, before we throw a lot of grant money, everything at it, which is very hard to get for this situation, we want to make sure that we have a solution. And that is one of the things that why we're doing this research. We could have gone out and attempted to borrow money for about $200,000 to go to this immediately. But what if it isn't right? We have had a lot of engineering down here in the last year. We know that whenever it's done, to answer your question about water standing in the street, is that tower sitting up there 30 inches above, and it's a lot more cosmetically gratifying to the owner than that loose neck that we have sitting in the yard. And as Rowan was saying, there are advantages. If we throw enough money at it, but throw at it properly, we can solve it in the long run. But we do not want to be wasting money like we did before, because we're only going to get one more crack at it. Like I say, when they told us, if it had not been for Senator King's assistance, DEP, we were given $2 million to put in the vacuum system, either or else. There was no question. You were not going to be permitted to go back with another gravity system, because the one that was there was leaking into the river. Whenever it was low, we were putting about 20,000 gallons a day into the sewer plant. If you had water standing in the street, we had days as much as 300,000 gallons in a 100,000 gallon certified sewer system, flooding the entire system. So this was what happened. But as a part of that $2 million, 85% was grant, 15% was payback. And that's what your surcharges go on. That's what was pledged for the payment of that grant. But to answer that, yes, in the very beginning, when they started, that gravity system worked. But all problems that created loss for subdivision were violated. Mr. Combs was probably one of the worst developers that could have been found in the state of Florida. That he didn't care about anything, whatever his quickest way was. He electrocuted a couple guys at the lift station. Got by with that, drank a little, hit a car out at the corner of Maxwell and 309, killed a couple of people, continued through. There was a given day there was a given day when that sewer system could have been bought for $10,000. USDA, as a condition of some money, forced us to pay the owner at that time $250,000 to proceed with it. I mean, if it was simple, anybody could have handled it, but we have done a lot of work, we had our engineer even.
Was that, PVC or ductile iron
What,
for your gravity fed?
it's a, Randy?
PVC.
PVC, yeah.
Did you ever have a TV in lamp?
Yes, we have several times. And as a result, people say, well, you don't need an engineer.
Well-
To gain any grant money or anything for this project or the main project or anything else, you have to have an engineer. It so happened that the engineer that worked on this the first time around, prior to any of us being here, well, I'll say this, but we were living here when Joe Bitar got involved. Joe Bitar learned his sewer business with us, and much of it was a problem. But, as we're trying to say that we know now that we got 7 months out of these new towers. But before you buy 138 of them, you wanna make sure that we have it, and that's what you guys are working on. We do know, we were saying, the reason we know that you need to get a couple of times a day, because there's an individual history on here, we wanna know the computer down there. We'd love to get away from that. Sam preaches about it all the time. It isn't the cost of that tower, it's the cost of man hours over the course of the next 20 years if we continue the way we are. Even now, we're still fighting with FEMA. After a year and a half, we're still sending paperwork back and forth. And we're doing some additional assistance. We want to get a mitigated situation where at least 85% of the cost is paid by a FEMA mitigated grant. I mean, but you would be after us instantly if we threw more money at it without knowing it was working. That's basically where we are.
Well, one of the things you look at, the two most serious problems in this country is drinking water and how to dispose of waste, both liquid waste and solid. Almost every month, some company comes out with a new improved version, and of course, a town this size just can't go out and get them as they develop. And we've had, and I think Mountain, you've looked at them, we've had the old controller that was put in here.
Well, they come out with a new controller.
Yeah, and they came out with the new one, and we bought that, and we have a number of those. But after that, they've got another one, and they'll have another one out after this. And so, you know, like the mayor says, we have to kind of try out these things. It takes 6 months, a year, to see if it's going to work in the system, and if there's any improvement for the monies we're putting in it. We think that the elevation of the controllers has been helped. You know, you gave me some help with trying to look at these towers and stuff.
AVR
The
boxes.
new controllers now are, they can, work under the water and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, they say they expel some water and stuff with the way they're hooked up. I don't know, I'm not ready to buy into submerged
There's a company over
controllers.
there in Indiana